Hello, everybody. Mike Donahue, and
Brian May.
we are here at Groomed. We renamed this to Groomed in 10, and hopefully we don't have to rename it to Groom in 15. It's going to get worse as we progress. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in tonight, and don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Here's the deal: we've had about almost 300 views of this last podcast we had with the interview with Jen Christensen. It went really well. There's been a lot of feedback. We've had nothing but positive feedback. There has been some people that wanted some clarification about some things. And so Brian and I wanted to take this opportunity to clarify the timeline because it was a little confusing. Even when we went back and looked at it, it was a little bit confusing. Part of the confusion comes from the fact that it was 30 years ago. And the other part of it is that, there's just some fogginess with trauma. When people go through trauma, they don't, especially when they're, I'm not an expert, but when they're starting to, relive it, some of those details get a little fuzzy. So we tried our best to talk to some key individuals, Jen's parents, siblings, and friends and people that know the situation, so we could get more clear clarification, more clear details on what happened. So I'm going to take it up to a certain point, and then Brian's going to kind of take over, and we'll just kind of piggyback. But what we've been able to gather is that when Jen was in her freshman year, the flirting with this coach began. And it wasn't physical in her freshman year, or I'm pretty sure her sophomore year, but it began to get a little more physical and a little more intentional the end of her sophomore year. Her junior year is when things really progressed. And I think towards the end, what we can gather is towards the end of her junior year, middle to the end, there was physical situation. There was kissing and that kind of thing that happened in the school actually, and some outside the school, meeting, like she said, after games and things like that. And then the beginning of her senior year, which would have been the fall of 1989, that's when the note was found. And there was a meeting with the pastoral staff of the church and some of the leaders of the school, and they confronted them. And there was a mandate, or this individual, this coach, was told that he needed to be held accountable by a pastor. So a pastor at Bellevue Christian Center was now his mentor, or his accountability partner, and so he was to report to him. Haven't been able to get a hold of that pastor. I've actually called him a couple of times, but have not gotten a response from him. But there was supposed to be some kind of accountability. That whether it was happening or not, the relationship kept going on, and it kept getting progressively more intense. And then Brian, I'll let you take it away to the summer or the spring of '90.
Yeah, so let's back up a step. So I was still on staff. The 89-90 school year was my last year. And as Mike said, a note was found, a love note, a serious love note was found. And it was determined that it was in the handwriting of this coach. And initially, the initial meeting that happened after the person who found this note brought it forward was that Jen's folks, as we understand it, again, this is the best we can understand. There's probably some fog and some holes here, but went and confronted the coach with the note. And my understanding is they basically said, "Hey, back off." Subsequent to that, as Mike said, there was another meeting with one of Jen's parents, staff from the school. As best we can tell, there was someone there from the church. or at least there was an indication that there was someone there from the church at that time that was referred to. And again, with this coach, and again, as Mike shared, there was allegedly this accountability relationship that was going to happen with this pastor who was on staff. Now, it's important to understand that the Mayos left Bellevue in the spring of '88, I believe.
No, it was the late 88.
Late
It was
'88.
January 88. I mean, January 99, 89, sorry. January of 89 is
January
when
9th.
they,
Okay,
yeah.
right, right. And so Jeannie wasn't in charge of the school, at least on prem. And that leadership had been turned over to the Hoyts. They were the head of the church. They were leading the church at this point in time. And so the fact that this pastor was appointed as this coach's point of accountability, counseling, whatever you want to call it, uh, it indicates that the leadership of the church at that time, the Hoyts, knew something of what was going on. And so, again, our understanding is that at that point, everybody thought everything had cooled down and settled down. But as you know, if you watched Jen's testimony, that didn't happen. And somewhere in early '90, an incident happened that brought to light that Jen and this coach, this individual, were still seeing each other. And Mike, you were in Rockford then, and you were eyewitness to what happened on the Rockford end of this. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So one day, Jeannie pulled me in her office and said, I need to go back to Bellevue because there was an incident. And I said, oh, what happened? And she talked about this coach and Jennifer, and said that there was somebody had seen them, caught them. There was something, that had happened physically that somebody had, witnessed. And so they brought it to the school's attention, and it became a big thing. And she said she had to go back and her words was, fix it or, handle it. And what I found out later, I mean, much later, like years later, that her handling it was really covering it. And so as we talked to Jennifer about what that was, she said that she had a meeting with Jeannie, and a little bit unclear on how it all took place, but it was at the school. And she said that Jeannie had basically said, do not tell your parents about this part of it. I mean, they had already known there was some flirting and that kind of thing. And they
Right.
thought that's all that was. But then when the incident kind of brought it to light that there was more than that. And again, we want to be careful. I don't want to throw Jen under the bus here because, we don't want to say things that she is not willing to say. But basically, there was an incident that had happened. And so Jeannie coached her not to say anything and sort of shamed her. As I unpacked the conversation with her the first time we talked about it, it was basically you kind of tempted him, and this is a little bit your fault. And so Jen got the message that you know it was kind of her fault, and that this guy kind of was the victim himself because she was forward with him and that kind of thing. That's the way she was made to feel. And
Yeah.
so she kept quiet because she felt
Right.
maybe she's right. Maybe Jeannie was right. So she kept. This is what she said to me, that this was really serious, and there was a lot of guilt and a lot of shame, with what was going on. But yeah, for her to put this on, the victim is pretty heinous.
Yeah. And we'll probably continue to talk about that a little more in coming days. One more, before we wrap this up, one more thing that's important to note is this coach, even after this second incident came to light, remained at the school. I left the school at the end of the 1990 school year. This person stayed at the school at least the following year. So that just tells you that Number one, the thing was not completely dealt with. It doesn't appear to be anyway. And number two, we'll talk about this more, but think about that signal that sends to this young woman who had been taken advantage of, told to be quiet, and the person who took advantage of her just continued to go on in this institution like life was normal. So we'll continue to unpack that, but we thought it was important to really lay that timeline out today to make things a little more clear.
So don't forget to come on this Sunday night. We're actually going to have a professional psychologist come on and talk about trauma and these sexual abuse trauma and things like that. So and germane to to what happened with Jen, and also just in general, to what happens to people when they go through those kind of
Right.
things. So I look forward to seeing you guys. We are groomed in 10 now. And actually, it's a little over 10. So we're doing all right. All right. We'll see you guys Sunday night. See you
Sail.
later.
Bye.
Bye.